Brandon McCormick, I'm a graduate student, PhD candidate at Vanderbilt University, the Graduate Department of Religion, Homiletics and Liturgics, Black Religion and Cultural Studies. I was on the Church and Black Youth Empowerment panel, so the title of the presentation was The Preachers and the Powers That Be Eat, and the subtitle was Black Churches and Black Youth Empowerment in the Era of Hip-Hop. And so I looked at the ways that Black preachers were engaged in larger discourses surrounding Black youth culture, and I used Kathy Cohen's work to problematize the ways that certain discourses contribute to a certain moral panic that surrounds Black youth, that demonizes and criminalizes Black youth culture. I examined some of those issues, and then tried to look towards certain Black activist ministers who were trying to intervene in much more progressive ways that were empowering to Black youth in urban communities in the States. So I dealt with three different models. One was the Reverend Dillman Coates, who's a pastor in Maryland, who began the Enough is Enough campaign for corporate responsibility and entertainment. And so whereas other ministers may be critiquing Black youth themselves, or sometimes the rap artist directly, his goal is to hold accountable those corporate powers that be, that are responsible for the production, distribution, and circulation of stereotypical images of young Black people as thugs, pimps, gangsters, and so on and so forth. So those marches that he was leading, and the protests that he was leading, was to contest those powerful people who profit off of the stereotypical images of Black people, which inform public discourse and public policies that at times adversely affect young Black people. Flash mobs being, kind of a catch-all term for it. It could be anything, a group of people that suddenly converge on an area, usually by the coordination of social media, to do any number of things. It could be a flash mob for dancing, or it could be a flash mob for looting. In these situations, it was flash mobs that turned into at least some kinds of violent activity, that were the blame of which was laid at immoral Black youth. And so Michael Nutter was invited to a Black Baptist pulpit in which he addressed the issue and really engaged in what was an unfortunate tirade against Black youth. He was careful to try to couch some, but the kind of vitriol that we heard was unfortunate in the ways that it targeted Black youth for surveillance and for certain kind of policing tactics that would criminalize and stigmatize already marginalized Black youth. And the Black Baptist pulpit became the site from which he engaged in that kind of rhetoric, which was then broadcast to the larger Philadelphia community to display that a Black mayor was not afraid to get tough on crime when it came to Black youth. Oh wow, I mean, it just depends. I don't want to any more flatten that out than anything, right? There's always going to be a minority of churches that are engaged in that kind of work. I think the civil rights era often gets romanticized as though everybody was king, or everybody was marching with king, or everybody was somewhere nearby, when most of them were sitting on the sidelines, or often very hostile to King's efforts themselves. And so even in this post-civil rights context, in which we have a kind of de-radicalization of the Black church, and where we can use that kind of language that's been used, but I still think there's a critical contingency of Black churches who are trying to do the work that will never get the kind of limelight. And so when I talk about the powers that be, it's funny because, many ministers are ready to critique the hip-hop artists in which they, for allowing themselves to be coerced by those powers, but never really pay that much attention to critiquing the way that Black preachers and celebrity ministers get coerced by those same powers who invite them to lucrative programming and the like, and so they engage in prosperity gospels that engage the same powers. But these activist ministers will never get that kind of spotlight or that kind of media exposure as these other kinds of churches that are on the ground in the trenches and doing the work. But they do exist. There's yet a remnant, as it were, of prophetic, Black religious leaders who are trying to address the social issues that plague Black youth in the post-civil rights era, or what Neil Irvin, painter, brilliantly calls the era of